Welcome to Gaming History. Today I'll be going over the complete line of Resident Evil games in the main series, but I won't be going over any spin-offs like Resident Evil Zero. I want to start off and say that if you've never played a Resident Evil game and you're not a huge fan of the violence, blood, and gore, then don't watch this video. So I'm starting off with Resident Evil 1, the original. So this game kind of defined the genre survival horror. There were other games like Silent Hill that had other like fighting zombies and creatures and stuff like that, but I think we can all agree that this game kind of defined it. It was a great game, multiple weapons, and very popular. It came out for multiple systems, but I think the most popular version was probably the PS1 version. Skip ahead a little bit. This game also spawned remakes for the GameCube and the DS. The GameCube version is just known as Resident Evil Archives Resident Evil. The DS version, as you see here, is Resident Evil Deadly Silence. This is Resident Evil 2. It is my favorite Resident Evil game, and I've beat it 4 times. This game took place in the police department and followed little to no storyline of the first game. It kind of went off on its own story. This game came out for a lot of systems, including the PlayStation, Windows, Nintendo 64, the Dreamcast, the GameCube, and eventually PlayStation Network on the PS1 Classics. However, there was one additional version on a system known as the Gamecom, which was not very popular and created by Tiger. This game followed the storyline of the G-Virus in sort of a sequel to the T-Virus from the first game. Made the zombies stronger and such. I'm not really going to go over most of the storyline, I'm just going over the base of the game. It was actually available on cartridge for the Nintendo 64, a disc for like the PS1, and download on the PS3. So it's like a whole bunch of different ways for the... It was also available on CD-ROM and GD-ROM. I own the game from PlayStation Network, and I highly recommend getting it as a PS1 Classic if you haven't already. This is the case of Resident Evil 3. This guy you see here, his name is Nemesis, like it says on the case. Nemesis was pretty terrifying, and he'd pop out at random moments. Resident Evil 3, I was never able to beat. However, it did come out on PSN like Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 1 as a classic. It also came out for some of the same systems as Resident Evil 2, like the PlayStation, Dreamcast, and GameCube. In this game, Nemesis, this big beast you see, would pop out at random moments attacking you. This game came out in 1999 and continued the story of Resident Evil 1. Chris, one of the main characters from the original Resident Evil, does not appear in this game. However, the other main character, Jill Valentine, is the main character of this game. Now, in Resident Evil 4, which came next, it continues the story of Resident Evil 2. Well, at least the character's story. This is Leon from Resident Evil 2. He comes back, and this is arguably one of the best Resident Evil games of all time. I was never a huge fan of it, but this is what most people consider the best. It came out for GameCube, PlayStation 2, Wii, Windows, mobile phones, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, iOS. It also came out for an unknown system known as the Zeebo. Well, it's known, but unusual. It was not very popular, is what I'm basically trying to say. After that, we got Resident Evil 5. Sorry, this image is a little cut off. This is one of the best Resident Evil games, hands down. And in my opinion, it was the last good Resident Evil game. This game followed the same storyline from Resident Evil 1, 2, and then 3. Well, Resident Evil 1, then 3, and 5. So basically, the odd numbers followed the same storyline, and then the even numbers followed the same storyline. This game ended zombies. There were no zombies in this game, and instead you have the Majini, which is sort of like if you take an insane person from a mental asylum and give them a pipe, you've got a Majini. This guy you see here is the Executioner, and he's one of the many bosses in the game. It's a great game. Highly recommend getting it, and it came out for the newer systems like the PS3 and the Xbox 360. That's a little big, isn't it? This is Resident Evil 6, which actually had multiple storylines. You could do the storyline of Chris, Ada, Leon, or Sherry. Now, Chris is from the original game, Resident Evil 5, and all of them. Leon, Ada, and Sherry are all three originated in Resident Evil 2. There you have it, the history of Resident Evil. It's funny how he went from things like this to other games like Resident Evil 5, and then, well, this isn't gonna look right, but Resident Evil 6. Looks weird. So, yeah, I'm going full screen now. But, that's the complete history of Resident Evil games. Thanks for watching.